Yeah. What up, douchebags? We're back. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And whenever you are tuning into this video, my name is James Porcelli.
I'm Brian Thomas.
And welcome to another very special edition of the Ruthless Talk podcast. It's been 2 weeks since your boys have been on a show together. And here we are. After what has been some crazy shenanigans over the last several weeks, which we're not going to get into because it's pretty much irrelevant at this point. Today is a Monday Night Raw review. We're going to get into the Vince stock. We're going to get into a little bit of AEW from last night. We're also going to get into a little bit of NXT and their debut show of the CW network, as well as, of course, like I mentioned, Monday Night Raw and their go-home show to Bad Blood. And speaking of Bad Blood, we will have a review show this coming weekend with a very special guest joining us for that show. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. We also got Wrestle Dream next week. There's a lot of shit going on, and we're going to be here to talk all about it. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive straight into this show. So why don't we start off with, Brian, this Vince McMahon documentary. It's now been well over a week since this documentary came out. And, finally, I was able to get caught up with all of the episodes, all 6 of them. And, Brian, there has been a lot of, I guess, controversy, a lot of, mixed emotions and feelings about this documentary. A lot of wrestling fans feel like there wasn't a whole lot, new information that was spewed about this documentary, not a whole lot of, added information about Vince McMahon's personal, problems with these misconducts and accusations. But I'm going to get you to start off with this, Brian, in regards to any takeaways that you may have had with this documentary, anything that caught your eye, some quotes from this documentary, and then I'll give my takes later on. But Brian, the floor is yours. What do you think, man? What do you think about this documentary?
Oh man, there's a lot I think about it. If I'm being a lot, and kind of, it's really simple at the same time, man. As you mentioned, like I guess, and it even stated, I think there in one of the first episodes, like once this newest, these really really heavy, disgusting allegations came out, like they were either done filming or they stopped filming. So yeah, you didn't. All the other stuff we kind of knew, whatever. There were a couple things that, from my perspective, stuck out a little bit. Just, coming from my era, Jimmy Snuka, who, he was a fan favorite of mine when I was, first introduced into wrestling, and I couldn't have been like 5, 6 years old. And so I didn't know any of that at the time, of course. And as I got older, I vaguely remember, like, I know Snuka had been accused of murdering a woman, and I, didn't really know the details or whatever. But I didn't know how much McMahon seemingly maybe had a hand in that. So, yeah, I mean, there's been things like that throughout the years, man, where it's questionable. And it's only whenever anybody looks back, 2020 hindsight and things, yeah, we see things differently. Like at that time, I'm a kid, I'm falling in love with the business, and I just see the attraction, the Andre the Giant, larger than life. And I can't even, fathom, what's going on behind the scenes, um, all that being said, look, there is like I feel like I see a common thread between people of like Vince McMahon strikes me as a person, whether look, there's abuse in his childhood, desperately seeking his father's approval, and then you throw in millions and billions of dollars and unchecked power and success and fame and whatever. Um, like I say this wholeheartedly, like not tongue in cheek. Like I'm serious when I say this. Like if Vince McMahon didn't have wrestling as an outlet, or that be his thing, or if it had failed, like he is the type of personality, like he could have been a fucking serial killer. Like, I'm not shitting. Like, the cognitive dissonance in that man, and just the the ego, and the what's the word I'm looking for? Damn it, I can't, it's escaping me now. But like, where he says, like, oh no, like, I don't think anybody had a problem with it. Like, he
Delusion,
is
maybe.
so delusional to the point
Yeah.
where, and you see in the documentary his son, Stephanie, Linda, Bruce Pritchard,
Right.
like, no, like, this is fucked up, but this is who he is. And he just is fucking gone,
Mm-hmm.
I see that, and like, I don't want to get into a discourse, but it's individuals like that, like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Donald fucking Trump, like these kinds of fucking people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just question, like, the people that are duped by them. I guess it's like, I'm not sure who I question more, like Vince or the people that believe him. Like, what the
Mm-hmm.
fuck? um so yeah, I mean, I could go down a litany of quotes, and just just behavior. The shit with Stephanie in particular, like, just storyline wise,
Mm-hmm.
as a father of a daughter, like, even back then, like, that shit was, I mean, to me, it was accepted more back then, but it was still fucking cringe, man. Like, um yeah, that's, I don't know, other than to say, like, it's kind of part of American culture, where we have this, like, hero worship, where whether it's a sports star, a musician, actors, actresses, where, I don't know, man, we put our faith, trust, to some degree in it. I don't know why we do it, but we do. Yeah, I mean, the guy is he had a great vision, and a creative mind for a wrestling business in a particular era, in a particular time. And beyond that, he's a disturbed man. you know that's my takeaway.
Yeah. First things first, before I dive into this, is that, I mentioned this a time or two in regards to just Netflix as a whole. I still find it odd in the
Yeah.
timing of when this documentary was being released. But I guess, hey, listen, WWE, we're paying you $5 billion. We're paying you all this freaking money, so we're going to get as much in our investment as we can.
Yep.
It's, again, just the timing of it is so weird, and now you're putting WWE in a weird position to now ask all of these questions about Vince McMahon now moving forward, because, hey, who more of a polarizing figure, whether good or bad, than Vince McMahon in regards to the wrestling industry, right?
At this time, and possibly in history, considering who he was. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's one thing, but the one thing that just really stood out to me about this documentary, and I'll kind of just recap the good, bad, and ugly in regards to just Vince McMahon as, a creative mindset, a creative businessman, as well as the person himself. You know, we talk about, or we've seen a lot of stories, kind of the same stories with the Monday Night Wars and the Montreal Screwjob, the Whitney Rector story, right? All of these stories, and
Wendy Richter.
Whitney
Sorry.
Richter, excuse me if I'm
Yeah.
mispronouncing that.
No,
My
no.
apologies.
Yeah.
But what stood out to me more than anything, and I think that this is where I think a lot of other people to kind of take away from it, is that, yeah, we've heard it from people like Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker, about all these stories. So it's just like, okay, cool. Yep. The Attitude Era was great. Monday Night Wars, it was great. But now, for the very first time, you're hearing Vince McMahon speak about these things to where very at the beginning of the documentary, he's like, I don't really like talking about me at all. So that's what I believe what was truly was trying to get accomplished, to get Vince McMahon's point of view about all of these subjects that we've had heard over the past from, again, the likes of Undertaker, Stephanie McMahon, Shane McMahon. And he talks about even just like you mentioned, once upon a time, this dude was a creative genius, and talking about, trying to get the title on Hulk Hogan at the time when Bob Backlund was a face, and a lot of things to where I do praise Vince McMahon back in the day, to where Triple H nowadays, which is why I criticize him and give him a hard time, which where he lacks, and that's truly long-term storytelling, to where Vince McMahon, whether you like him or not to this day, had that in spades, man, knew to add somebody like the Iron Sheik, a bona fide heel. That's where we got Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik to get the title over on Hulk Hogan. Many things in regards to it, Sergeant Slaughter turning heel, right? And the way that they kind of did that, I believe that was back during like the Gulf War in like 1991 or something like that. So it's just like, it's really eye-opening, and kind of, you see like Vince McMahon kind of maybe, going back in time and reminiscing those moments and how exciting those times were. And just, again, reminding people that, yes, during the 2010s, it was ugly creatively. It was we obviously, we all kind of want to forget about it in history. But again, once upon a time, this dude was a creative genius and legit put wrestling where it is today, whether, again, we like him or not. But then, of course, you have these other things in regards to the Montreal Screwjob. Remind me, Brian, this woman's name, Wendy Richter. Is that her last name? Richter.
Yeah.
Richter. And
she was for back in the day, she was a top female star for what it was back in the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just like, and again, this now with Vince McMahon speaking about these things, like, talking about, a lot of these wrestlers, obviously, including Bret Hart, which I'll get into in just a second. It's like this is their livelihood, right? I mean, they're independent contractors, right? They're fending for themselves, but all Vince McMahon sees it as is just his business, right? And this is a quote that kind of stuck out to me. It's like, what did you feel about it when you did that, decision at the time to screw her over? It's like, well, he's like, that didn't seem like it was fair. And Vince McMahon goes, life isn't fair. Think about that. Like, that was his answer. Like, even to this day, he's like, life isn't fair. And even he goes to the Bret Hart screw job and what he thought about that at the time. He's like, I don't regret it at all. To this day, I still don't regret it. And it just gives you more insight about who this man truly is. He will not go any way, shape, or form for that bottom dollar in regards to it, as well as the circle of people that was around him. Again, even the people like Hulk Hogan, who went to bat for him during the steroid scandal. And even like you said, Brian, about Jimmy Snuka and how he really tried to go to bat for Jimmy Snuka at the time during those whole, accusations and everything. Like, he just had this circle of people like Kevin Dunn and such. Yep. And it's fascinating Pat because Patterson.
I gotta speak
Pat
on
Patterson
that too.
Pat Patterson. Right? Pat Patterson. And it kind of sticks out with me in regards to Tamina Snuka, right? Tamina Snuka has been on the active roster for many, many years, and she's never wrestled. And I think that's kind of just like a token to Jimmy Snuka that she has a job for life. Owing just that relationship that Vince McMahon has to that family, the relationship that he has with Hulk Hogan, even though Hulk Hogan took his ball over to WCW, ended up coming back years later, 10 plus years later. So just a lot of things. And of course you got the Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon and, and that whole relationship there, Shane McMahon, to where you can tell even to this day, right? I mean, we hear about all this stuff about him potentially going to AEW, and now you hear this documentary about all these ideas about Shane McMahon wanting to buy the UFC, doing a deal with the UFC, and Vince McMahon turned it down. He's like, dude, we're in the show business. That's a sport. That's a real life sport. And Shane McMahon really thought that was a really good investment. And Vince is like, all right.
And now look where they're at.
And now look, exactly. And Shane McMahon, was at that time would have been a really good investment. Ago. Yeah, absolutely. So, and it just shows you why, and just again, what I've said about Shane McMahon for so long, like you can tell like he wants to prove a lot of people wrong, a lot of suits and ties, and
Mm-hmm.
even his own father to a degree, to where, yes, it's his father at the end of the day. There's still love and all of that. But with Shane McMahon, you can tell like that really truly bothered him in regards to what Vince
Yeah.
McMahon was doing, just business wise, and even with Sable, right? Going to court, going to trial with Sable, and then bringing her back, which was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a whole lot of stuff. And of course, towards the end, with the whole Janelle Grant, trial and, misconducts and accusations towards the end. And of course, using his family and storylines. Linda McMahon was a part of this, talking about she was so uncomfortable being on camera. She didn't want to have anything to do with being on WWE television.
Right.
And just, yeah. And there was like one point where where Vince McMahon was speaking about that whole Sable situation. And there was like this really like long pause, like awkward pause. That was like the most that kind of stuck out to me, like in a very weird,
Like,
awkward way.
he's guilty as fuck of all
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, obviously, Netflix, and obviously we've also heard about Vince McMahon trying to buy this documentary to try to kind of get a hold of things.
Oh,
And
I
now
didn't hear that. Yeah.
yeah, so this was like several days before the
Ah.
documentary released, and now we kind of know why. To where Vince McMahon, like I just said earlier, had to ask all of these questions and had to explain about all of these subjects that a lot of other talents and a lot of other suits and ties, like Bruce Pritchard's, even Dave Meltzer, like journalists and others. And now we get to hear it from Vince McMahon, and to where, yeah, you hear you hear a lot of good nostalgia, but then you hear a lot of just, really just decisions to where you're just angry and frustrated over Vince McMahon, and like, why would he do that? Why would he screw over Whitney Richter? Why would he screw over, Bret Hart like that? But then you get to the disturbing parts, which is, how he utilized his family and storylines, and the whole Sable situation, Trish Stratus when she first came
Yeah.
into the company. So, but I think the main takeaway for me was just, yes, we've heard about all these stories and everything, but it was the fact that Vince McMahon, for the very first time, spoke about all of it. And it was just, that's what was mainly fascinating for me. And hopefully that was very fascinating to everybody else that was listening to it. And that's pretty much it, man. It was a little bit of everything, the good, the bad, and pretty much the ugly in regards to it.
Let me
But
just
yeah,
touch on a few, because you just brought up, if I can, real quick, man. Because there was also, this was actually the documentary, the first time I had ever heard of it. And I'm forgetting her last name, but there was a female wrestler back in the day. I believe her first name was Rita something. Look, at the end of the day, this woman was raped. I have no doubt in my mind. This documentary, that's the first I've heard of it. The ring boy thing, I've never heard of that before. And
yeah,
speaking of Pat Patterson, like, again, he had a creative mind. He was a creative genius, right? But I always, as I got older, I always, because he was openly gay, which is I have no problem with. But back at that time in the wrestling world, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, dude, if he was protected by Vince, and no doubt he did some really ugly, disgusting shit, and was protected.
yeah,
Um, Again, because in that environment, culturally, and we see it even now today in sports, where people are just now openly coming out as gay. You did not do that in the wrestling business in 1955. You just didn't. So yeah, it's things like that. Where, man, that's why it's funny. Like, I had this conversation with my daughter the other day. Money and power by itself, inherently, there's nothing wrong with it, I guess. But it does something to people. To protect their own ass, to protect their money, to protect their reputation, whatever it is. And I just, the way I live my life, man, those uber successful people, man, I don't trust you as far as I can throw you. You shady
Mm.
as fuck. So, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, man. And a lot of other things too, like, the Owen Hart situation too,
Oh,
which was like, and there was a segment or there was a part of a clip where Jeff Jarrett was like cutting a promo and he like gives a shout out to Owen Hart after this situation. Now, I
he
believe
died.
the arena,
Fucking
I believe,
minutes.
was blacked out, so nobody saw it. Like, he was
Right,
hanging from
right.
the rafter, nobody saw it, but his blood was left in the ring. So, like, you have these performers performing with Owen Hart's blood still in on the canvas. And there was a segment where Jeff Jarrett was like cutting a promo. He's like giving his condolences to Owen Hart, and then he has to like switch right back into character. And I
I can't
forget I
imagine.
forget who was with Jeff Jarrett at the time.
It was
Um,
shit.
I'm forgetting her name.
Steve
My
Austin's
apologies.
wife,
Yes,
fucking
I'm forgetting
Deborah.
her name. Yes, Deborah, right. Yeah, like she's in the back and she's like almost like in tears. And yet she has to get back into this character like, "Oh, I'm sexy. I got my knockers and all this stuff," right? It's just like that's when you kind of knew like that example there, especially Jim Ross announcing it like, on the air that Owen Hart passed and now you're expecting these performers to go out and perform in front of this live audience. And that's when you kind of knew, yeah, the plug should have been pulled
Oh,
that night for sure.
absolutely.
And even like,
And
go ahead,
one
Brian.
more
Yeah.
thing, if I can say something, the whole Bret Hart and the Montreal screw job, right? That's kind of really when I just as a wrestling fan, right? And I know it's hard for people to go back in that era and just realize like who Bret Hart was, who the Owen family was, or the Hart family was in the wrestling business. And this whole idea of, well, Bret could have taken the title to WCW and what I get it. And people have done it in the past.
Hmm.
Bret Hart was not that dude. His whole deal was I'm leaving this title match is in fucking Canada. I can't remember, and I should have done this before we got on here because I don't think that night, that pay-per-view was his like I think he still had like even like he could have been on the next Monday Night Raw or maybe even like a week later.
Right.
And he just didn't want to lose in Canada going out like that. And as we see now, like you could have done a tournament. He could have there's many options, right?
Hmm.
Bret Hart was not going to be the dude that is going to screw and expose the wrestling business. He just wasn't.
Hmm.
So the whole idea, the premise that that's why Vince had to do it, fucking bullshit.
Mm.
No, I don't buy it, man.
Yeah.
Because that Bret, he wasn't going to do that. He
Hmm.
wasn't going to take the title to WCW. He
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, and he even said it himself, like, for 15 plus years, like I gave my heart and my soul to Vince McMahon
He
and did
did.
everything that
Yeah.
he asked me to do, and he did it. And yeah, it's just, and again, it's like I said in the quote, man, that he's like, I don't regret any of it. For him still to this day to not even regret that decision still is like, just again, tells you
It's
everything
just a
that you need
guy.
to
He
know.
never believes he's wrong. He
Yeah.
does not. He does not. And it's this thing again with individuals like that. Like they've because I don't know. There are segments of the population that are just yes men or do believe him,
Yeah.
but they can look. I like. It's just one of those things where like I've never encountered a person to where you hear like, oh, I could sit down with Donald Trump. He's mesmerizing the way he talks. Like, yeah, because you don't call him out on the bullshit.
Hmm.
Like, that's why.
Yeah.
Uh yeah.
Hmm. And that's kind of why like people like Endeavor and TKO, like they are trying desperately to get rid of every single last memory and image of Vince McMahon and of this dude, right? To
Yeah.
where, I mean, but it's funny because, all of this, whether again we like him or not, is because of his image. But yet
Yeah.
TKO and Endeavor, they're just like, they don't even want to talk or mention about this dude.
No, and for TKO, I can't blame them because
No, I don't blame no, at
they
this
have
point, I don't blame them either, but it's
and they don't
also
have a history with Vince, you know. That's
right.
it's they're just getting into this game. So yeah.
No, and I no, business-wise, for them's sake, at least moving into the future, I don't blame them. But it is crazy because, again, whether, again, we like Vince McMahon or not, and this is not defending anything about him as the person, but this dude, because of what WWE has gotten to this point, is because of his image, right? And what he's done for the company and for the business, making it go public, making it go mainstream with WrestleMania and all these big set events, and what he's done when his father was taking over the company at the time. And yeah, man, it's interesting, and maybe we got more questions than answers in regards to this documentary, but I think that we learned a little bit more deeper about Vince McMahon because, like I mentioned at the top of this cold open, speaking about all of these subjects like the Monday Night Wars, the Attitude Era, the Montreal Screwjob, the Owen Hart situation. And because of that, you got to know a little bit more about Vince McMahon's mindset and what he thinks about business and how he thinks about just the talents, I guess, to a certain degree, and also the people around him, to where if you were making him money, if you were benefiting on his behalf, he was going to protect you. He was going to go to bat for you. People like Bruce Pritchard, people like a Kevin Dunn, people like a Jimmy Snuka, people like a Hulk Hogan, and many other suits and ties, and many other, people in the wrestling industry. So, but hopefully everybody enjoyed this documentary for what it was. Again, I still feel like this was a very bad timing to do this, but they did it. And now they're got to be like, hey, Monday Night Raw is coming to Netflix to Monday Night Raw. Go ahead and watch it. January 2025.
Right.
I don't know. I just think
and
it's still very odd to me.
The whole thing is, man, and whether it's Vince and WWE or Netflix or who the fuck ever, that's what it's about, man. It's just the fucking money, dude. The fucking money.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is with Triple H too. And I've said my piece about Triple H, at least as a creative, suit and tie. But what I do respect Triple H about is now you see the environment of the locker room change. A lot of people, again, when it comes to talents, if they need to take that said day off, or if they need to go away, or if they need to do this said project, now there's no second guessing, like, oh, you got to take care of this, done, like, go ahead and do it. To where Vince McMahon back in the day, like, if you
absolutely not.
No, it wouldn't fly on Vince McMahon's watch, let's just say. So yes, the environment of the locker room and just how, again, everybody feels a certain different type of way now definitely is a lot better. And I think that that's why you hear a lot of wrestling talents claim that, oh, Triple H is great, Triple H is this, because the environment of the locker room and how business is run in regards to looking out for each said individual, absolutely. Now I do think it's blown out of proportion to where saying, oh, the product is at an all-time high, that's a different discussion. But I will give people like Triple H and others in that company now that the environment in that locker room is a whole lot better. Nobody's like really walking on eggshells as much, maybe in regards to questioning their, creative long-term plans, people like, a Karrion Kross, or maybe whatever name you want to throw out there, a Ricochet that's now over in AEW, I guess. But it's crazy, man, to just dive into the mind and just thought process of Vince McMahon about what he's thought about all of these subjects that we've been told and we've been given stories about over the last several decades. And it's interesting, man. It was fascinating. I enjoyed it. Hopefully everybody else enjoyed it. And, fucking Vince McMahon, dude. That's all I'm going to say and kind of end it, man. So, but let's dive into, let's move on with the show. Let's discuss NXT and their debut show on the CW network. I do want to give a little golf clap to HBK and NXT. Guys, their rating scored an 895,000 for their debut show. That was just released a couple days ago. Very solid debut, as we kind of expected, a pretty good rating for their debut show, of course. But I do want to give credit because, and regardless of how people feel about it, with adding people like a CM Punk, a main roster talent, and maybe a Street Profits and the Bloodline that was a part of NXT not too long ago. They made people tune into the show because of all of that stuff that was beforehand over on NXT on the WWE network, or on the USA network, I should say. But yeah, obviously, of course, it's the debut show. People are interested how it's going to look, the new theme song, the visual, everything. There's new sets of tag titles I saw that NXT has in regards to it. But first things first, kind of the main discussion that I want to give is that Julia versus Roxanne Perez. That's going to be the only thing that I want to discuss here. Cora Jade made her return. She pretty much cost Julia this match. She hit a DDT on the outside, threw Julia back into the ring. Roxanne hit her Pop Rocks finisher for the W. So Roxanne Perez retains her championship. Now, people can look at this as one or two ways, right? Number one, you're thinking, well, this is a new era, right? A new network, a new look, a new show. You would think you would have a new said champion, right? Now, the other case scenario is that with Julia, there's an argument to be made. Maybe you don't want to throw the title on her this soon. You want to make her stay face. So let's bring back Cora Jade. I like Cora Jade, but she just doesn't really do anything for me. People compare her as like part of like this new 4 horsewomen type of thing, to where, Charlotte or Tiffany Stratton's going to be like the next Charlotte Flair, and Cora Jade is going to be like the next Sasha Banks. I see more of that in Jada Parker, honestly, than anything. But I mean, Cora Jade's fine. It's not that I don't think Jada or Cora Jade doesn't have potential. It's just right now she just doesn't do it for me. And she has gotten an unfortunate ride up until this point in NXT with multiple injuries, and now finally she's back, and hopefully she can definitely start to pick up momentum, maybe with this allegiance, I guess, with Roxanne, and maybe they want to save Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, I guess, maybe for the near future. They don't want to like rush things in regards to Julia being on NXT, being a part of the WWE production on TV. So I don't know. I have many mixed feelings about it. The match overall was not the greatest, to be quite honest with you, to where the chemistry wasn't the best in this match. But and that's maybe why they decided to also go to this decision. Again, many things could have happened in this decision, to where Shawn Michaels feels like, maybe a second match, Roxanne and Julia will kind of clean things up. And maybe that second match is when you pull the trigger and give Julia the title. I don't know. So those are just my takes in regards to it. And then you had many other things. Jada Parker Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair showed up, took out Fatal Influence in this show. Trick Williams regained back his NXT championship over Ethan Page, and many other different things that happened in this show. But hey, golf clap, man. I mean, for what the ratings shows, regardless of how I feel about it or not, people were interested, and that doesn't include just being the debut show, but what NXT was providing over the last several weeks getting up to this point. So, hey, kudos to NXT, kudos to Shawn Michaels. Randy Orton's going to be on the show next week, so hopefully that momentum continues moving forward. So, before we get into Raw, I want to go into just a little bit, just a teensy bit, into AEW. And Brian, I know you have some thoughts in regards to this potential Hurt Syndicate faction that is slowly starting to form here, as Shelton Benjamin officially made his AEW debut. Bobby Lashley from has just been announced that he just signed a contract with AEW. That was reported by Fightful not too long ago. As we know, it's coming, man. It's coming. This said faction. Is Swerve Strickland a part of it? Is he not? Are they just going to do Swerve versus Bobby Lashley? So we shall see, man. But Brian, I know you got thoughts about it. What are your takes, man, in regards to Hurt Syndicate, Shelton Benjamin being on board, and where you think this could potentially lead to?
Yeah, man. So it's weird, and I can't really fully explain why I feel this way, but like, so AEW, right? I mean, they've had, Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, and they've had other WWE stars come over. Nobody Swerve is in his prime, right? Or he was just entering his prime, really. Lashley, if Cedric Alexander maybe is a part of this, but Shelton Benjamin, of course, we know MVP. All of these guys still have years left of really top quality performance left in them, I think. So if AEW, if this is the game that, we play AEW versus WWE, like, look, WWE whole in every way possible dropped the ball, screwed it up, whatever with the Hurt Business, like with all of them. Like, so if AEW wants to get, form this faction and quote unquote do it better, the talent's there, man. The talent is fucking there. Show me. That's where I'm at with it. Is like,
yeah,
man, I'm okay. Fucking, I just saw your post with Lashley coming over. Maybe Cedric Alexander is. We don't know how Prince Nana is going to play a part, or if anybody else is. But just with who we know that is already there, and the story that kind of we know is coming, man, if you do it right with these guys, it could be really, really fucking good. Right now, I don't trust it to be, but I hope it is, man, because it is sitting right there for everybody to knock this out of the park, and it really could be. But we'll see, man. I mean, I'm just, it's like one of those things. Like I'm excited for the potential and what I know and feel that it could be with these guys together in a faction. But at the same time, they didn't do it at WWE. AEW is horrible with storytelling and consistency. So, what can I expect? I don't know. All these guys. Again, we talk about deserve, whatever. I'd say earned. This could be really good. It could be a really powerful faction within wrestling. So yeah, man, we'll see where it goes.
No, yeah, absolutely. We know in regards to WWE, for several weeks, I've said it, Triple H, for some odd reason, just did not even want to acknowledge a reunion of the Hurt Business. And that's why you have MVP now in AEW, of why MVP has been so frustrated over Triple H's booking over the last several weeks and months for not pulling the trigger on a new Hurt Business, I guess, reunion. They never even wanted to break up in the first place as well, which is also weird, which is why I find the departure just very baffling too. I'm like, they just got started. Like, why would you break this faction up so quickly? And to know, like, the group never even wanted to even think about that type of decision, and yet that decision was made. It's interesting, but yet here is AEW. They're in that same type of situation to where you can make this work. It's sitting in their lap. And again, for somebody like Swerve to be a part of this, right? And I think listen, I like Prince Nana. Shout out to him. He follows me on Twitter and he follows Ruthless Talk on Instagram. He's a great dude. He's got his coffee business and everything, but I think Swerve at this point needs that upgrade, I guess.
Yeah.
And what better upgrade than being a part of a badass faction, right? And listen, we've seen so many factions in this company come and go, right? And to where some of them are still here, they're still trying to kick it, but all that momentum, man, since they've started, even factions like House of Black and factions like frickin' Bullet Club Golds, and so many others like the Pinnacle with MJF being a part of it, and just all of it just being very underwhelming to where we don't really care about what they're doing anymore. And the question is Hurt Syndicate, is that what they're going to be? Is that their future, to where they might have a cool little debut, but then over time, is it the act just going to get stale because it's not booked or presented properly? So that's the question.
And if I'm being honest, like, this actually, I mean, in a way, like, I can even see a way where this is the best case scenario or opportunity, I guess, for an MVP, Lashley, Alexander, Benjamin, because I think even in WWE, what they lacked is, by the time they formed that faction. Good, bad, or indifferent and how you book it, but all of those people had already been on WWE television for 10, 15, 20 years. So there was nobody you were necessarily going to push to the world title picture.
Mm-hmm.
You have that in Swerve. You have the younger star that is just entering his prime. And you have right now Benjamin, probably Lashley, of course. Not that they need to be like in the background. You can still do awesome shit with them.
Yeah.
But Swerve's going to be the focal point.
Exactly.
And he should be.
And he should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm sure people would have an argument. Maybe Bobby Lashley can be that, to where even at his age, he can still be maybe at that focal point, but still
it's Swerve. Yeah.
It's Swerve. And I think and potentially it could be Swerve. So we'll see, man. I just hope that it makes sense, it's captivating, and it's presented very well, because
me too,
the potential
man.
is through the roof.
It is.
And we'll see. We just gotta wait and see. Play the waiting game on how all this unfolds. But let's get into Monday Night Raw now. There's a lots to go over with Monday Night Raw. This, honestly, and I'll speak about it more towards the end of the show, this was a very complete show. And what I mean by that is, like, you got a little bit of everything of this show.
Man.
You got a heel turn, a potential face turn, a kick-ass main event, a big return. So there was a lot in this show, whether we like it or
good
not.
Promos,
Good promos to build up for Bad Blood.
Yep.
So whether we like this or not, you got to give Monday Night Raw credit. This was the first time I've seen this in numerous of weeks. This was very complete of a variety of a show. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, it's really one of the best, go home shows to a pay-per-view I've seen in quite some time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely, for sure. Let's start off with the Judgment Day. The Judgment Day, you had, I believe they just came off of a match, I believe against the LWO and Rey Mysterio and that whole group. It's Judgment Day and LWO. Who cares at this point, I guess? I don't know. But afterwards, Liv Morgan, she's cutting a promo, building up, of course, her match with Rhea Ripley. Of course, Rhea Ripley's music hits. She comes out onto the stage. She says some words. Damian Priest ends up sneaking into the ring from behind, going after Carlito, McDonough, Finn Balor. And then you had Dominic and Liv. They escape the ring, but then Rhea Ripley comes down the rampway, starts brawling with Liv Morgan, and even taking out Dominic, to where he's trying to put Dominic in the shark cage that's at the top of the stage. Dominic's trying to hold it with his feet, trying not for Rhea Ripley to close the door. Liv Morgan attacks from behind, and then the brawl ensues at the top of the stage. And then meanwhile, in the ring, you've got the rest of Judgment Day. Of course, the numbers game catching up to Damian Priest. They lay out Damian Priest. Finn Balor hits the coup de grace, and Judgment Day stands tall, leading into Bad Blood. So I'll just make this short and sweet. Man, and Brian, I know you've been saying over the last, and I heard this, of course, had your first solo show, which, I shed a tear, I was so proud to see you cut your first solo show. But you mentioned in regards to, Rhea Ripley taking this title from Liv Morgan, which could be a possibility. And obviously, I'm kind of more on the opposite side of things, to where I think this would just benefit more of Liv Morgan winning this championship. And yes, would this make sense in regards to finishing the story and the name of, the pay-per-view? It's Bad Blood, right, and Rhea Ripley's getting her revenge, gaining back her championship. Absolutely. There's no question it would rectify all of that. But here's where I kind of go in a different direction, right? Number one is that right now, outside of Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, what else truly is there in this women's division that WWE has to offer? Maybe it's Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax. Maybe, potentially. They still got to do a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, what truly is there, right? And I think for WWE, they kind of know that. And I think that there could be a possibility to where I'm hearing Raquel Rodriguez potentially returning and maybe costing Rhea this match because Liv and Raquel Rodriguez have a history being a tag team. And of course, Raquel and Rhea Ripley have had their differences in the past. So Raquel is going to be Liv Morgan's muscle the way what's her name? Camille over in AEW is to Mercedes Moné in AEW, potentially. And number two, Brian, is that, listen, I like Rhea Ripley a lot. It's great to see her be this bona fide baby face now. I do think that's the least few things in this company that WWE has gotten right in building up Rhea Ripley and making her this bona fide star. But afterwards, or what happened before with Rhea Ripley's first championship defense or her title reign didn't really go as great. It was just very underwhelming and forgettable. And I'm kind of scared, Brian, to that degree, to where she'll win this championship, she'll get her big moment, and then it's like, okay, now what? Now that Liv Morgan's story's over, you can't go back to that. What else do you have to offer at that point than Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax are doing on SmackDown? So, and not saying yes. And again, no doubt if it's done properly, Liv Morgan will be fine. Dominic Mysterio will be fine. But at this point, I just don't care for a Rhea Ripley title reign, especially after what happened the first go around. But anything could happen. Who knows? But Brian, what are your takes in regard to this segment and this matchup for Bad Blood?
Yeah, I think it was a good segment. And so regardless of who wins, to me, I think it would be good, and there's good stories either way. Yeah, I hadn't heard about the Raquel possible return. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if this would be Raquel, but wasn't there a tease on Raw with like somebody return or somebody coming, right? Am I just thinking of that, or did that happen?
Oh, that was are you talking about like what is it? It was like it was like initials. It was like P something or whatever. Is that what you're talking about? Because it looked like it was like it's hard to describe. I don't know how you describe it.
Yeah, it was something, but it was teasing somebody either returning or a new superstar coming, right?
I think that was honest. I think it's the Viking Raiders. I think it was like that Ring of Fire, and there's like 3 initials, and I believe there's like wrestlers mention about like if you enter those numbers in like a certain code, it spells out the word war. So I'm thinking Viking Raiders is pretty much just who is returning.
I gotcha.
People were saying the Lucha Bros. I mentioned this on shout out to
the
again,
Lucha Bros. Right?
Yeah, people were. I don't think it's the Lucha Bros, especially what's going on with Rey Fenix and his contract situation with AEW right now. It's unfortunate, but it's not the Lucha Bros. It's the Viking Raiders in regards to it. Now, hopefully, I would love if they change their name back to the War Raiders or War Machine. Like that fucking name, bro, should have never changed. And hopefully that rectifies. I will praise Triple H. I don't do this a whole lot. I will praise Triple H to the high heavens if he fucking does that. Because, man, like that from NXT, bro, like War Raiders, War Machine, they were kick ass. And if you can bring back that name and build some momentum back, that could truly help those two for sure as they come back into the tag team division. But that's probably what it was that you were thinking. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, but anyway, back to the women. Yeah, I mean, it would be good either way, and there's good storylines either way. Like I feel like something like not that Rhea needs the title, and I agree with you. Like her and we've talked about it many a times. Like that build to her title win was fantastic.
Yes.
The title reign, absolutely. Way underwhelming. Yeah. But I feel like Dom and Liv, I don't know. I feel like they're getting ready to kind of go off and do something else. I think maybe it's possibly. My perspective is more about Dom and Liv going to do something else than Rhea winning the title or Liv holding on to it or whatever. So yeah, and with Priest, I thought, so going into Bad Blood, I was like, okay, I think Rhea's winning, but Priest might be the guy who takes the L, and Finn gets a little run here. Yeah. But then, of course, you know the history with how pay-per-views and the go-home shows go. So, Priest gets the beat down. is that a sign that he might be winning at Bad Blood? Who knows? But I think that would be a good call for them too. I mean, I don't think this really needs to drag on much longer with Damian and the Judgment Day either. So
Yeah.
but it doesn't end here unless Priest gets the win. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. And again, I go back to like what the point is of having Damien and Rhea winning after what happened at Bash in Berlin too.
Hmm.
And it's just like the way that you can carry this is like I mentioned with Raquel. If that's true, who knows? We'll soon find out if that's true or not. To where, yeah, like you because if Rhea Ripley wins this championship, Brian, like who's her first?
I've been trying to think of
Because that's right. You see what I'm
I
saying?
know
Because
it's
like
still down the road, and who knows when and if. But I mean, eventually, of course, Rhea and Jade or Rhea and Bianca are gonna
right,
square up again, or for the
for
first
sure,
time.
for sure.
Um, but right now, yeah, I don't know.
See, that's the
Yeah,
thing, and that's the thing that I think Liv Morgan should win this, and that if you
yeah,
want to bring Raquel to kind of blur the lines and to kind of make Rhea stay face and to kind of let this to let this, I guess, drag on, but in a good way,
yeah,
to where
right.
it's still fresh. Now you're adding a new piece in Raquel, and there's a history with her and Liv Morgan.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's just, and again, after what happened with Rhea's first title reign, it's just her holding on to that championship and what you have to do to get to people like a Bianca and a Jade in the future.
Right.
To do that now, I just don't think it just doesn't make sense to do that now. I still think that there's still a few things more that Liv Morgan still has to offer as champion. And I
Sure.
think that because of the
And I
fact that
think she does too. I mean,
and I
sure, yeah.
yeah, and I think the fact that when it comes to Liv Morgan, right, she's gelled into this really solid heel character with
She really
Dominic,
has.
and
Yep.
her holding on to this title and her taking it from Becky Lynch out of all people. I just think that Liv Morgan deserves a lot better than just to lose it at a Bad Blood pay-per-view, if
That's
that makes
fair.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to give Rhea, if you want to give Rhea that championship, which yeah, at the end of the day, that's most likely going to be the long-term outcome is for Rhea to get back that championship, no doubt. I just don't think it should happen at Bad Blood, is all I'm saying, because there's
Yeah.
still more to offer with Dominic and Liv. And if you want to bring in somebody like Raquel to kind of add into the fold, that makes, I guess, for fans to feel more for Rhea Ripley to get back that championship and for her to gain back her championship and to get her revenge on Liv Morgan after months and over a year of this feud and everything that's been building up. So we'll
Right.
see. And yeah, and Finn Balor, yeah, I think with Finn, it also makes sense for him to defeat Damian Priest. And I think the ending of all of this is Priest and Rhea winning the war and being done with the Judgment Day, being done with Finn, being done with Liv, being done with JD McDonough, and all of this is doing it at the right time at the right place, if that makes sense. And
So
who
you think
knows?
both of them will take L's at Bad Blood, both
I think they
Rhea
should.
and
I think they
Priest.
should.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Gotcha.
shock me if they do pull the trigger with Rhea Ripley and she wins the championship. I do
Yeah.
feel that Finn Balor, um, what's the word I'm looking for? At the end of the day, I feel like they should both be winning this match. Both Finn and Liv should be coming out
Yeah.
victorious in this match. Because yeah, because it's
I
just because
definitely
and
think so
again,
with Finn, and I'm on the fence. Like I could go either way with Liv and Rhea, if I'm honest.
yeah,
Yeah.
and unless again, talk about with Damian Priest, and again, this is just what kind of came to mind is that if Finn Balor does lose this match, then you would think, okay, well, it's over, it's done. Well, you have the demon character. You can also have Priest win this match and then do the demon character for a
Right.
second match. Again, I'm just throwing things out there
Yeah.
because Demon Finn Balor against Priest would be pretty fucking epic if it's done
Yeah.
properly.
Yep.
So who knows? There's so many avenues you can go to, but we'll see in regards to it, because that's the one thing I also think at the top of my head, because if they are going to continue Finn and Damian Priest, than if Finn were to win and then like do the demon character and the demon loses again, because for the last several times the demon's been on character, he's fucking lost.
Right.
So that's something that I also have to think about as well. But we'll see. The good thing is that there's a lot of avenues.
There's a lot of avenues,
a lot of avenues to go into. Absolutely. Yep. Let's dive into Punk and Drew McIntyre as they cut a really good, solid back and forth promo. So Drew McIntyre, he's all in black. You got Punk, who's in all white. So obviously you knew what the accomplishment was there for that.
I mean, it was wow. I was like, wow. Just a blatant ripoff. But yeah.
No, rip off. Yeah, that's fair. No, that's absolutely fair. But
I mean, I guess I don't like things because I mean we're in the wrestling. Yeah, I mean it's not like it's a fucking idea that I'm sure a million people have fucking had over the time. So stealing ideas, rip off. I don't know. It's been done before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, they cut this promo. McIntyre speaks his piece, and then Punk kind of waits to finish. McIntyre turns to leave. Punk says a few words. This was Punk's best promo over the last several weeks. I felt like a couple weeks ago, Punk was kind of just there to kind of just hit the liners and reading off the script. Now this felt more like CM Punk, right? This felt more of like a CM Punk-esque type of promo. You had like security kind of like being in the middle between the two, right? And again, there was no physicality, right? Again, you have the Hell in the Cell chamber down and everything, right? When a face-to-face, guys, is done properly, right? That's what adds more suspense to be like, man, I really want to see this matchup now, to where they've been doing this now for the last several weeks with just those two by themselves, right? Cutting separate promos. And I'm just like, man, you don't have these two in the same building, right? Or at least in the same segment. But now with this and just the way that these two delivered their lines and the way that they just were able to perform and cut these promos and just how it came across, it was well done. Both of these two were on their A game with it. And regardless, I'm already sold with the matchup anyway. And obviously, of course, there's not a whole lot to really be done at this point after months and months of this feud. So yeah, as far as the outcome is concerned of who should win this match, I mean, I would personally, right, if I'm just speaking personally, which I don't like to do a lot, I would like McIntyre to win this match. I would. But I do think that this is going to end with Punk getting the W. And I'll be honest with you, Brian, and I don't know how you feel about this, because if that's the case, right, if Punk wins this match and he goes after Gunther for the world title in the future, and we're going to get to Gunther and Sami Zayn for a brief moment. If that's the case, Drew McIntyre should go over to SmackDown, right? It should be like a loser leaves Monday Night Raw, because there's nothing else that Drew McIntyre needs to do on Monday Night Raw. He's not going after that title because he's a heel, and Gunther's holding onto the title. You're going to do heel versus heel, and Gunther and Drew again. That makes no sense. So if you really want to benefit Drew from this with this loss, however you got to do it, however you got to spin it, have Drew McIntyre go over to SmackDown.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm seriously, why not? Because there's nothing else that Drew McIntyre needs to do. He's not going to win that world title anytime soon. And that's what's really going to give
go back and fight for the IC title. I mean, what are we going to do with Drew? Yeah,
absolutely. So Brian, what are your thoughts in regards to this segment, as well as this match, and what I was able to say about maybe this potential outcome as a whole?
Well, first, man, let me give a shout out to both Drew and Punk. Cause I mean, if I'm being honest, after their last match, I was okay. I was even ready for it to be done, if I'm being honest. Like, okay, they had this match, Punk got the W, he got the bracelet back, and whatever, cool, we're moving on. And my initial thoughts were like, when Drew came back, back out, I guess maybe the week after or whatever, man, I was just like, fuck, here we go again. But man, I got to tell you, both of these guys I cannot wait to see this match, man. And them just beat the absolute shit out of each other. Like, I think there's a lot of good matches and rivalry feuds, going into this Bad Blood. But this match, man, like, this is why I'm tuning in.
Absolutely.
And it's been the feud of the year. These
Yes.
guys, far more times than not, have hit home runs than struck out. So, this is going to be the blow off. You're right. I mean, I almost wish now that they had made that stipulation of like, hey, once this is done, whoever wins, like, we got to be done, and therefore, like, we can't be on the same brand. Like, that would have been a brilliant move, because you're right. I do think Punk's gonna go over here, and I think there'd be more opportunity for Drew to stay in that main event picture over on SmackDown. So I expect this is going to be like a hell of a match, man. Obviously bloody as fuck, entertaining. Yeah, man. I mean, there's really nothing else these two guys need to say. The promo was good. I could have, didn't need it. I'm already ready and on board for this match. So yeah, man. It's going to be a hell of a match, and
Yeah.
we'll see how the outcome goes.
No, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, of course, it's had its bumps in the road. I mean, we've talked about, with Money in the Bank and such, but majority of this, man, like both of these dudes, just have done a tremendous job. I remember one quote in this promo Punk said about, like, I had to stay in a hotel for several weeks because I don't want my wife to see the man that I've become. Like, that was like, it's gotten to that point to where like Punk would just can care less about somebody like Drew McIntyre. Oh, you're trying to say my name for views and for fame, right? And now it's boiled to this point to where like it's like, I'm gonna see you in hell. Like, it's like, I might freaking die, but I'm gonna die trying, so I'll see you in hell or whatever, right? Just speaking hypothetically about that. So again, man, just like you said, bro, it's been feud of the year, arguably. It's feud of the year of what these two have been. Obviously, it's been building up to this point, but how these two have been, just really making this feel somewhat authentic, right? Which you don't
and
feel
remember,
a whole
for
lot in
months,
wrestling.
this was all just like promos,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. So really good segment from these two for sure, and no doubt. And again, I hope to God, and who knows what this company has planned with this tag match with Cody and Roman Reigns. But my God, man, like, unless we're getting The Rock, right, to fucking return at Bad Blood, and who knows, I'm just speaking just again hypothetically,
Right.
put this fucking match in the main event, bro. Like, give these two the spotlight, give these two the main event, a spot that these two have been working towards now for months, man. So if that's the case, unless
if
again,
you're talking, you're absolutely right, dude. Because if you're talking, look, if you take these, Punk and Drew, versus a Cody and Roman and Solo and is it Fatu? It's probably
Jacob
Fatu.
Fatu.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All of those individuals are capable and are going to put on a good match.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, what is the better, more intriguing story and the better match to end a show? A fucking Hell in a Cell in a a bitter blood feud that's lasted a fucking almost a year. Like,
absolutely.
it shouldn't be a hard decision, but
it really shouldn't be. You would think, right? But again, man, just because even if it's you got a big surprise return like The Rock or whatever, bro, even regardless, man, it's Cody and it's Roman. It's your two biggest stars.
That's the only thing that I think could potentially make having that Hell in the Cell the main event bad, is if you have that match, with Cody and Roman before, and The Rock returns in that match, then by the time the main event comes, there's already
nothing topping, right?
Yeah.
No, that's what I mean. Like, unless we're getting somebody like The Rock to make a surprise return in a big headline to end the show. If not, if we're just playing this coexisting game, whatever side they go to, whether it's Cody and Roman that gets the W or it's Jacob Fatu and Solo, and then we end the night, we go off the air. I'm just like, why not just do Punk and Drew McIntyre then, if that's your outcome?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
But no, but regardless, man, these two have done a tremendous job. Drew McIntyre, again, just ever since before this whole situation with this heel turn started with, you go back to, his allegiance with the Judgment Day, or that little business relationship with the Judgment Day, and this heel turn that's been long overdue for so long.
Yeah.
And now with this feud with Punk and just everything, not just on WWE television, but on social media, on Twitter, on TikTok, and just making this feel like actual beef, and that's what's, again, man, without kayfabe. I know kayfabe to a degree is fucking dead, but without a little bit of kayfabe, man, fucking wrestling is done. There's no professional wrestling.
Sure.
So, and that's just it, man. But let's go over to Sami and Gunther real quick. And I got some stuff too about Braun Breaker later on in this show too. But let's dive into Sami and Gunther. Another really good face-to-face promo segment. Gunther talking about how embarrassed he was losing that IC title, talking about his father, that he had to go and look his father in the face and losing that IC championship. And now he's disgusted, he's embarrassed, because now that's his reputation, right? And Sami Zayn's like, listen, when you lose, like, you crumble under the pressure. You crumble, you come down. Me, I dust myself off after a loss. I dust myself off after adversity, and I pick myself back up, right? And it's just everything about this segment, to where, or not just this segment, this story for the most part, to where I like the realism again of the IC title, right? It's like, hey, I was the IC champion. Now it's time for me to take and go to the world title, a title that I haven't won yet. And Gunther just being as arrogant and cocky and just full of himself, to now becoming the bully. And now here's Sami Zayn, right? To where you see a lot in the movies, like the antagonist, the bully, and now it's the protagonist trying to out-bully, the antagonist now, to where Gunther now is getting frustrated and he feels a certain type of way. I love that, man. It's simple, but yet so effective. And it got to the point to where now Sami Zayn's mentioning his father, and then Gunther takes him out. Afterwards, it was just so well done. Everything about this was well done. As next week, they will be having this match on Monday Night Raw. I believe this will be the first Monday Night Raw for going 2 hours going into this calendar year. So next week will be the start of Monday Night Raw, back at a 2-hour program. And you'll have Sami Zayn and Gunther being most likely the main event of that said show. But finally, Gunther, he beats down Sami Zayn, and now finally he's like, you want this match? You got your match, drops the microphone and walks off. So I love the way that they have been dragging this out, right? And I mentioned this with Wrestling with the Homies podcast, with the collaboration that I did, is that a lot of times when WWE drags things out, it sometimes just gets very redundant and repetitive, and it's something that's not really just investing, right, or intriguing to that matter. But now with this, right, and just how much it makes sense, and you have it with the right people in place, you can do so much with it. And obviously Gunther is going to win this match, as he should. But Sami Zayn has done a really good job as well, playing his part. And with this loss, and even though there's not a whole lot of names, right, to kind of put Gunther in a position to get to people like Punk and maybe a John Cena in the future. Who knows what Cena and his plans are for his retirement tour. But this was really done very well. Just, again, both of these dudes, like I said, with Drew and Punk, played their part really well. And just how we've dragged this out to get to this title match, I thought was just very well done for the most part. Brian, what are your thoughts, man? Sami Zayn and Gunther.
I thought it was excellent as well, man. I'm glad they finally got to where Sammy's, pointing out the fact that, you are great, you're this, that, but I'm the guy that ended your historical IC title run. And the stuff with Gunther's father, feeling like a failure and embarrassment. I mean, that fits Gunther's character so perfectly, of why, just the type of character he is. I mean, that fits so well. Gunther is going to win here, as I think he should. But yeah, that promo, or that segment, that was really good.
Absolutely.
Really, and I'd kind of been like lukewarm on this whole, the match itself, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a good match. Gunther's going to go over. And somebody might be waiting in the wings. We'll see.
We shall see. Yeah, honestly, bro, I'm more invested in this world title feud than I was honestly with their Intercontinental Championship feud. And I think
Sure.
a lot of it kind of was unfortunate because of the whole Chad Gable situation, and people thought that Chad Gable should have been in that spot, and that was kind of watered down to a certain degree. But now with this world title feud, it's rectified, and both of these dudes have done a tremendous part. I'd really like this new added layer with Gunther, to where yes, he's the ring general, right? He still respects the good fight, but now he's become more of like this arrogant prick, this bully,
Right.
which I really like a lot. And he plays that part tremendously
Talking
well.
about
Sure.
what was the beginning, like the finer things in life, he's enjoying those as, the world champion does.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Just again, it fits, man, so well.
hmm
His mannerisms and everything fits so well with that. And yeah, obviously, of course, like I mentioned, Gunther should retain this championship, and who knows what
Yeah.
comes after that? Maybe CM Punk, who knows? But overall, really, really well done from those two. Let me get into Braun Breaker real quick before we get into the last monster standing match. That was the main event of this show. So Braun Breaker was in the ring with Jey Uso. Jey Uso celebrating his big title victory, mentions his mother. It's like, hey, mama, we did it. We made it, right? Winning his first singles championship. Braun Breaker comes out and he's like, listen, I'm not here to fight you. I'm not here to attack you. I just wanted to be the first to congratulate you. They shake hands. Jey Uso gives him a little bit of a rub or whatever. It's like, hey, we got some dogs barking in, I forget what town they were in this past
I can't
Monday. It's
remember.
like, oh, the dogs are barking here tonight. And you
Jasper,
hear
Wyoming. I don't
yeah,
know.
right, right. And the crowd starts to bark, and you got
Right.
Braun Breaker with a smile across his face. I mean, Braun Breaker seems like he's going face. I mean, that
Yep.
seems like what it is. Now, I have a few things I want to say about this, because this was the one part of the show, Brian, that I was kind of baffled. And I'll tell you why. And I'll get your thoughts in just a second. Because for weeks, man, like Braun Breaker has been, or was supposed to be, this diabolical heel. And lately, you've seen this for weeks now and months, to where he'll go out there. It's like, oh, we got a bunch of dogs in Austin. We got a bunch of dogs in Chicago. And the crowd starts to bark. Guys, that's called pandering to the crowd. And I'm thinking, like, that's what a baby face does. Like, you're supposed to be a heel. Like, what are we doing here? So the way we've been portraying Braun Breaker in that aspect has been very odd.
Yeah.
And now it's clear as day, like, this is the plan to get to Braun Breaker to turn face. I mean the mannerisms scream face. I don't know I don't know how else you can really take this. But here's where I find it really confusing, is that obviously we're going to get into the big said superstar that made his return later on in this main event. So you're turning Braun Breaker face. I just think, Brian, the timing of this is very, very weird. Because right now you have all these faces, people like a CM Punk, people like a Seth Rollins, people like a Damian Priest, right? And all of these other people. So is Braun Breaker just going to be the fourth or fifth face on the brand? Like, it's just very weird timing, unless we're turning Seth in the future to where that's going to lead to a feud with Punk, maybe at WrestleMania. I don't understand the timing of this turn. It's just very weird. I think there's a lot more we could have done with Braun Breaker. I feel like we're kind of, dare I say, rushing this face turn, to where there was still a lot more to offer for Braun Breaker as a diabolical heel. But I guess I can't be shocked, because for weeks he's been pandering to the crowd. Where are my dogs at? Right?
Yeah.
We got some dogs barking in Chicago, New York, and the crowd barks. I'm like, why is he pandering to the crowd? So I just find that very, very odd. Not saying that Braun Breaker's not capable of being a face. I just think that if Seth's coming back, I mean, spoiler alert, Seth Rollins is back. He made his big return. Seth Rollins is going to allegedly be a face. He's going to be a face going up most likely against Bronson. And now Braun is going to also be a face, along with people like Priest and Punk, who are bigger said faces. It just doesn't make sense. The timing of it doesn't make sense. But again, what are your thoughts, Brian, about this segment with Jey Uso and this alleged face turn from Braun Breaker.
Yeah, that was my initial thought too. Was like, because I don't think. I mean, Braun hasn't been bad in a heel role. I mean,
No.
he's it's very early on. And I think he's been fine carrying his own. So yeah, it was weird to see that shift where he's definitely going face.
Yes.
I don't know why. I would have been it'd be just as fine as if you kept him heel, for right now. That was kind of a little weird to me. I got to talk about Jay too, though. I mean, I know. Tell me how you felt. I mean, I know there were definitely moments where you could see emotion was real, with him during his promo.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, even from the beginning, man, it looked like he kind of got out there and blanked. Like, I don't know, man. The promo was not good.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe if that's just pure raw emotion, just holding on to the title or whatever. But no, I hear what you're saying. Because, I had that same type of vibe in regards to it.
It was like choppy and broken up and like,
yeah. And again, and who knows? Maybe again, that was maybe raw emotion.
It could have been. Well, shout out to him. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. No, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I definitely, it definitely was maybe choppy and definitely wasn't, I guess, a part of script. I guess, who knows?
Yeah.
But. And yeah, I mean, I mentioned with Jay, I mean, I was allegedly, you would think that it was going to be Braun and Jay in a rematch, in a said rematch. But now that Braun is allegedly going face, I don't think that's the case. Because what are you going to do, face versus face in this same type? That's why would we need to see that? Like, that doesn't make sense.
I don't think they're going to have at least not right now, of course.
No.
Yeah.
And honestly, I listen, if you're going to listen, and I mentioned this even too with Wrestling with the Homies, it's like, if you are going to have this championship on Jay, if that's the decision you want to do with, then just fucking run with it. Like, don't play this game with hot potato and have Braun Breaker just win back the title. Then what was the purpose of Braun Breaker losing the fucking title to begin with?
Yeah.
Sure. So ever since Braun has gotten to the main roster, and you can make an argument too that ever since his later times in NXT, he kind of just overstated his welcome to where there wasn't a whole lot more for Braun Breaker to really do in NXT. And he was kind of just, dare I say, wasting time over there to where he had to be put into a tag team with Baron Corbin out of all people. So yeah, it's very odd timing, just odd timing in a weird situation. But outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot to really criticize about the show, honestly, outside of that one little decision I guess potential decision they're about to do, and that's make Braun Breaker a full-fledged face in the future. But we shall see, I guess. Let's get into this main event. Let's knock it out, man. Let's get into this last monster standing match, man. I mean, guys, kick-ass main event, man. These two dudes, man, have been doing their thing for weeks now, and this main event was no different. They did the ring collapse spot. Of course, people like Big Show and Brock Lesnar did it. Mark Henry and Big Show did it at the time. And I like it because we haven't really seen that type of spot a whole lot. So I do hope in the future, whenever they do that spot again, they keep it fresh, right? And the way it was done, everybody played their part. The security that was a part of the match, the official, of course, Bronson Reed and Strowman, individually, just really, really well done for the most part, the match itself. But then you had a returning Seth Rollins to where he was going to, no pun intended, burn it down. And burn it down, meaning freaking stomp Bronson Reed's face into the canvas or into the steel steps. He rushes to the ring, goes to the outside of the ring, then gets into the ring, getting into position for the stomp, hits the stomp onto the steel steps. That's enough for Bronson Reed to stay down for the count of 10. Braun Strowman gets back up, and Braun Strowman wins this last monster standing match. And you have Seth Rollins. Of course, I don't believe this was shown on TV, but they were celebrating at the rampway, showing respect. He holds up his arm at the rampway. And then Bronson Reed, he's like slowly coming back to consciousness. He's like, dude, you fucked up. You fucked up by coming back, bro. And we'll see where this goes. I mean, listen, we knew that this was potentially, what's the word I'm looking for? Potentially going to get here at this point with Seth
Mm-hmm.
Rollins coming back. And I don't know. And Brian, I don't know what your thoughts are about this too, man. Like Seth Rollins, he didn't come back in this weird
I
pledged
know, it was
attire.
different
This felt like
attire.
old school Seth Rollins. Guys, please. And who
Please.
knows? We could be getting that fucking theme song again next week, and it could just be the same fucking Seth Rollins. But
No.
the mannerisms felt like old school
Yep.
Seth Rollins, like he just meant business, man. And that's who Seth Rollins, bro, should be like moving forward and should have been since day one. Because I get it, guys. We like to sing along and dance and have fun. But at this point, man, that freaking theme song has run its course. It's
Mm-hmm.
time for Seth Rollins to just be Seth Rollins. And that's just all about business and have him being portrayed as that like he was this past Monday. And before I get to you, Brian, what I liked about this is that, again, you had a kick-ass main event, a worthy main event matchup with both of these two and what they've been doing over the last several weeks. And now you add that with Seth Rollins returning to where it kind of does keep both allegedly staying face here, but it also leads to good questions with Seth Rollins, right? This potential feud with Bronson. Obviously, of course, the potential feud he's going to have with CM Punk moving on later on into Netflix. But also, Brian, to maybe you can also do some things and tell some stories of what he thinks about Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes teaming up together. Because the
Yep.
last time he truly saw Seth Rollins, like really until, of course, I mean, yeah, he was here for a short amount of time with Damian Priest in the world title match. But before that, my man sacrificed his career, his body to get Cody Rhodes to defeat Roman Reigns. And now here Cody Rhodes is teaming with that alleged individual, Roman. So you can also, again, if done properly, can also do a lot for Seth Rollins in that regard. So it also puts a lot of things in place for Seth. It puts a lot of things in place for Bronson. You get a kick-ass main event, a cliffhanger, good questions. What a crazy concept, Brian. That's all I fucking ask for from this company and from the show. And again, from top to bottom, outside of Breaker's potential face turn, that's just weird. But outside of that, whether you like it or not, whether people like it or not, this was a complete show with a little bit of everything. And that's honestly all you can ask for. But kick-ass main event and a lot of questions, good questions coming from Seth Rollins' return. I know that was a lot, but Brian, what are your thoughts about this main event and Seth Rollins making his big said return?
Man, this is honestly why I kind of love it so much. I mean, because both of the Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed really have been doing a great job over the last month or so, or month and a half.
Yeah.
They really have. Man, because this is kind of in part 1980. This is King Kong Bundy versus Big John Studd. This is 1980s wrestling with two huge, powerful dudes. It's not going to be a bunch of flippy dudes, but when it is, look, Braun Strowman, I don't know that I've ever seen Braun Strowman climb up to the top rope and do what he did last night or Monday night to Bronson Reed. I am going to remember, and I guarantee you, your casual wrestling fan is going to remember him doing that one time in his career versus 1,000 flips a match by the Young Bucks or whatever. Like, that's when you do those things in moments. And WWE does it well. Like, this, I don't know. It's kind of like this match in some kind of way, in a nutshell, just encapsulates everything, the minute differences between AEW and WWE, where like AEW can't put on a match right now with two guys this size and have it be good and entertaining and invested. They can't.
So far, they haven't. No.
Yeah. So yeah, man, I just love that aspect of it. Again, it's it's just the moment, the timing, the you pull these things out when necessary. But I mean, they've been telling a great story. I really did like the match. Seth Rollins coming back, man. I think the attire, his ring attire, is a dead giveaway. Like, yeah, the old, the crazy outfits, that has to be gone. This has to be
Yes.
something else,
Yes.
something new, or even a throwback to something old. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that to see what it actually is. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of avenues Seth can go down in particular with, I mean, a lot of feuds kind of, you could go down the line of about 6 to 8 dudes right now that you could fit anybody in there and it'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, glad he's back. The main event I thought was really good. Yeah, man. It's in a way, like, and not that like these two guys, obviously it has a shelf life. You can't, this feud has to kind of come to an end and whatever. But for the little bit of time that it is, when it's done right, and WWE can do it right when they want to, I guess, or whatever. This was good, man. And for two guys of that size, you don't see that anymore. Not in the last 15, 20 years, really. I
No.
mean, you get your big show, Mark Henry. I mean, I don't know. I guess I couldn't say that 15, 20 years, but I mean, even this, like, to me, like, I don't know, you were much more the ruthless aggression era. Like, for me, like, I mean, yeah, it was impressive to see like a big show of Mark Henry, but
Mm-hmm.
they were never like they were just, it always felt like kind of thrown together because they were just the two biggest guys, not really a story involved.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. And listen, I don't
Yeah.
want to make this an AEW WWE
Yeah.
type of
Right.
situation, but I mean, but you're right. Like, it's you're reminded of why WWE is who they is because they can take two of those guys like a Braun Strowman and a Bronson Reed and make that an impactful main event and a worthy main event, like I
Yeah.
mentioned, because of what
Yeah.
you've done with them over the last several weeks. And yeah, man, you said it best with Seth. This whole the clothes and the song, it's gotta end, bro.
It's gotta
Especially
go.
because with somebody like Bronson Reed, because if you're doing that now in this feud with Bronson, not only
Yeah.
is that making Seth Rollins look stupid, but it's
It's
also
making
it's making
yeah.
Bronson look like a fucking nerd too.
It's
Because
making
like
him
it's
clowning
clear,
him. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because he's not even taking him seriously. It's like, dude, like I tried to end your career. Like I
Yep.
legit like hit like not one, not two, not three, not four, five, six, seven tsunami splashes and crushed your ribs into like pieces. So yeah, man, this has to be, and moving forward, a different version of Seth. And you can again use that type of version of Seth to where he means business with people like Cody Rhodes, who is now allegedly tagging with Roman Reigns. He's like, dude, like I put my career and my life on the line to help you win this championship. And now here you are now tagging with this dude. Offend,
Yep.
like, what are you doing? Right. And that same type of situation with CM Punk, right? After what he did at SummerSlam, right? Attacking, I think he had a GTS on him in that match at SummerSlam. So, dude, it fits. And
Roman
it's
Reigns
been,
down the future. Like, I
yeah,
think
Roman
those two will
Reigns
cross
too.
paths again. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to have them cross paths, if that makes sense as well, absolutely.
Yep.
So just everything, man. Again, you had a little bit of everything from this show, which again, you don't see a whole lot from Monday Night Raw. You truly don't. This has been one of the most consistent go home shows that I
Yeah.
can remember over the last several months, maybe years. So this was really good, man. This was a very effective, consistent show. Hopefully, the numbers and the ratings showing that. Maybe it doesn't do it for this week, but maybe for next week, right? Because of how good this show was. And now a lot of people need to tune in, not just what happened maybe with Xavier Woods and this potential heel turn. That's another different discussion for a different day. But again, just obviously coming off of Bad Blood, and obviously
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot to talk about coming off of Bad Blood. But what you're doing with everything else, with people, like again Punk and McIntyre, and again with people like a Seth Rollins returning. I mean, who knows if Seth Rollins is going to maybe make an appearance at Bad Blood? I don't know. But that in of itself,
You're
to where
even in a, sorry to cut you off, but
no, you're
even
good.
like maybe not next episode because Bad Blood, but there's something interesting about particular Xavier Woods I want to get into, and maybe that, well, definitely the breakup of the New Day, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Even
for
that they've been doing that very well too. I mean, the
yeah,
way at least that they've been, both Kofi and Xavier have been playing their part, that has
yeah,
been that has been done
I
very
think there's going to
flawlessly
be a
too.
big swerve with that. I don't think it's going to go how people think it is, man.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that next week for sure, as I'm sure a lot more will go down between Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. But I mean, yeah, man, look, this is all I ask for as a wrestling fan, right? It's not about what I think or how I personally feel or how I want things to go down. It's just you give us a complete type of show like that to where it fits every certain type of fan and demographic, to where people, they like two behemoths like Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed going at it. Well, boom, there you got it. You got kick-ass promos like with Sami Zayn and Gunther and Punk and Drew McIntyre. Boom, you got it. So everything about this show had a little bit of everything to add some suspense to Bad Blood and for next week. And again, as a podcaster and as a critic and as a fan, that's all I can ask for at the end of the day. So much props to Suits and Ties for producers, as well as Triple H for approving all of it. And hopefully that continues going into next week, man. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. It has been over 2 weeks, but we are back. Thankfully, again, so many things have happened over the last several weeks, days. Again, that's a different discussion for a different day. But we will be back again talking Bad Blood this weekend with a very special guest joining, as we will do a full said review show on WWE Bad Blood. And then we are back again next week, seeing how all the fallout comes into play with Monday Night Raw as well as SmackDown. We also got AW Wrestle Dream coming up too, which I'm sure we'll give our thoughts about as well, seeing where this Hurt Syndicate storyline comes into play and a bunch of other things, man, moving forward as we get into the fall season. So just stay tuned for it, man. Of course, you see the banner down below. Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and TikTok. That is Ruthless_Talk. Thank you guys. We just hit 2,000 followers on TikTok.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. I mentioned that in the last episode, and I want to thank you guys again for so much hitting that milestone for us, 2,000 followers on TikTok. And we are very close to 1,400 on Instagram. So definitely make sure you guys spread the word and follow us on Instagram. Again, both Instagram and TikTok is Ruthless_Talk. And again, wherever you're watching this, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, we appreciate you guys as well. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are very close. We're almost at that 250 mark in subscribers. So definitely spread the word about that and stay tuned for our Bad Blood review this weekend. Brian, final thoughts before we end things.
Like you said, man, I thought this was a fantastic go-home show. One of the best I've seen in quite some time, man. It really was good, pretty much from start to finish, man.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, really looking forward to the fallout of Bad Blood, man, because there's a few things really that are like 50-50 toss-up, man. We can see how it goes, man. So I think a lot of interesting things are on the way in WWE, man. So looking forward to it.
For sure.
And thank everybody for liking, subscribing, getting us to 2,000, close to 1,500. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is going to do it for today's episode, everybody. My name is James Porcelli.
I'm Brian Thomas.
Until next time, there will be that next time. Your boys are signing off saying salutes.
Peace out.
And take care, everybody. Top guys.
Out.